As expected, Tropical Storm Irene has dominated the news for almost a week now. New York began preparations last Thursday when Governor Cuomo cut short a trip to the state fair to get back to Albany to meet with emergency officials. And while much of the floodwaters have receded at this point, a full recovery, to the extent that's even possible, is months and maybe even years away at this point. Joining me now, our insiders are here, veterans of the state government who are with us each week to talk politics and disaster at this point. This week we are joined by Rachel McEnany. She is the former advisor to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She is now a senior associate at Capital Public Strategies. Across the table from her is Brendan Quinn, former state Republican Party executive director, now a private consultant. That sounds so hoity-toity. Private consultant. Okay, and Rachel, welcome. We finally have a female insider. I'm thrilled. Thrilled to be not the only woman at the table. Okay, Andrew Cuomo, if you were to give him a grade for disaster preparedness and emergency response in the last week or so, what would you say? Either of you. Brendan?
I give him an A. I think so far he has established himself as the executive in the state of New York. He has performed beautifully. His staff has performed very well. He's been responsive. I think from what we have seen so far, we have to give the government kudos.
Okay, both before and after.
Correct.
Okay, Brendan.
He's done very well. He's been out there. He's communicated. If you go back and look at how Rudy Giuliani handled 9/11, which set the standard, he's been out there. He's been visible. He's been hands-on, and I hate to say it, he's done a very good job.
That's very generous of you. That's very generous. The thing is, though, as I mentioned, the recovery could take a very long time. You're starting to hear a little bit of griping out there of people, and look, I understand my power is off for 3 days. There are going to be people whose power will be off for weeks. It is a problem. And also infrastructure is a problem, as we've been hearing, for farmers, for commuters, etc. Do you think in the long term he can get tripped up by this?
The governor?
Yeah.
Look, New York is an aging infrastructure. I mean, we've already had problems in roads and bridges that have existed anywhere in the state, whether it's Tappan Zee or the Sawmill River Parkway or out in the New York State Thruway. It is a constant need that representatives, especially in Congress, are constantly being asked to fund, whether it's through federal funding or grants or whatnot. It's going to continue to be a problem whether or not this happened or not. I think it just was glaring because when this storm hit, we had no idea that the impact would be as great as it was.
Well, yeah, we thought it would be in New York City and Long Island. As it turns out, not so much. I mean, do you believe, Brendan, that there could come a time where New Yorkers will turn on Andrew Cuomo and say, hey, what's taking so long?
The bigger problem becomes in some of these areas where bridges were washed out, where it's going to take months to repair, months to replace, when it has an impact on people's homes, their livelihoods, that businesses end up going under. And a discussion that you were having earlier with some people about the impact on farms and what happens with the farmers, some of these guys may not survive.
Right, and they've been in that situation even before Irene, and this is just even more devastating. I mean, look at the Champlain Bridge. I mean, people have been inconvenienced for
Since
a year now.
09, right?
Right.
Since 09.
And we're still dealing with that.
Yeah, but so the thing is, eventually, I think in the immediate aftermath, people are saying, okay, we're happy that the governor was here. He was heckled a little bit today out in Prattsville. He was there with Janet Napolitano and with the FEMA administrator, Craig Fugate. And one person was, look, people are upset. They've lost their homes, as you mentioned. But at some point, they want somebody to blame. And there's just no money. So what happens? I mean, that's such a tricky tightrope to walk as an executive. I mean... Well,
I heard today from someone that in Rotterdam Junction, where the waters are starting to recede, that they were going in, the town supervisor asked the highway superintendent to go in and remove the debris so people could move back into their homes and try to go back and find out what damage it was. And the highway superintendent, this guy Jim Longo's response was, well, they're not scheduled for fall cleanup until next month. I'm not sending anyone. That's crazy. Most people have stepped up and gone out of their way and helped their neighbors and helped their friends, and that's usually what happens in a crisis. But this situation...
I understand it's a crisis, but what's happening in Washington and looking at Eric Cantor's statements that were just taken out from the leader of your Republican Party, I think it is outrageous for any House member in the Republican Party in New York State to stand by the statements that Eric Cantor has made.
We tell people what, because some people might not be following it. I mean, obviously you're familiar with what Eric Cantor said. just to let everybody know, Eric Cantor basically said, similar to the debt ceiling, if you are going to provide extra additional aid to people who are now have no homes, have no jobs, have no roads, you need to cut it somewhere else in the federal budget.
Right, and this is the same Eric Cantor in 2004 when he asked Hurricane Gaston to give him lots of money for his Virginia constituency, and he didn't ask for any accountability on the other end for doing a debt ceiling. And so this is the new Eric Cantor. And I think as the Republican House members in the state of New York really should respond to this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of, especially our Western and Upstate, and it is outrageous. It is outrageous.
Okay.
Well,
one did. Congresswoman Nan Hayworth actually said she thought it was a great idea, and then she subsequently asked for additional aid for counties that she represents, Rockland and Orange and Westchester, et cetera, to be added to the list. So which is it?
Spending money you don't have is always a problem.
True.
But when you're in a crisis situation like this, the first thing is to go fix the problem. You have to go and have that conversation later. I don't disagree with his concept that you can't spend money you don't have, but the timing of his statement was inappropriate, given that
it was beyond inappropriate. It was insensitive. There are people hurting out there. You know, businesses are devastated, homes are gone, and you know, we're always attacking these insurance companies when they don't want to pass off a house. So we're going to sit there with our leaders in our government are sitting there going, well, you know, I don't know how much we can help.
Is it a trap, though, for Republicans, do you think? Because you see people like Nan Hayworth being like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. The Tea Partiers want to hear that kind of rhetoric, don't they?
Some people want to hear that, but if you're the person that lives in that community, that your home is wiped out, that your block is wiped out, or your way to work and your business is wiped out, you want to know, how are you going to get to work the next day? How are you going to find your clothes the next day? Where's your next meal? I've heard stories of people, again, talking about Rotterdam, where there are businesses that have been donating food over to the fire hall, and that people in the community who have been displaced are going there because it's somewhere they can go get a hot meal, get
Right.
something to drink. And you see that volunteerism happening, and this is a long-term problem. It's
Right,
going
and
to
it's a
take a long
long-term
time.
problem, but this governor also inherited a long-term problem in a lot of these counties like Delaware County and Schoharie County, that we were already having such difficult time keeping families in their homes, keeping people to stay there, keeping businesses there, trying to drive work into rural broadband, all the things that our federal representatives are talking about, that they're trying to rebuild this state, and then this happens. So this is a step back.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Andrew Cuomo, he has this jobs agenda, right? And he wants to, and the state doesn't have a lot of money. And just today we see FEMA saying, well, we got $800 million, man, and you know, $1 billion per state on average. Where's the money going to come from? It's going to be the new fight in Washington, and if it is partisan, it could look awfully bad for both sides, don't you believe?
It hurts both sides if it's partisan, but if you start putting together the governors from those states, from Virginia, North Carolina, you have a Democrat governor,
Right,
Republican
right.
governor, you have a mix of different governors up and down that have been impacted by this. The governor in Vermont is out there, he's a Democrat governor. So
Someone,
this
yeah.
is not a partisan issue for the states that were impacted.
Let me
agree.
just say, before we run out of time, and we almost have, Chuck Schumer, I don't want to hit Chuck Schumer for being on vacation. I was surprised because we were sort of like, Chuck Schumer, we see him so much all the time, and he hasn't been around. Do you think it's a mistake for him not to come back? He's in Europe, we understand.
No, I don't. I think he is a senior senator. I think the executive, it's Andrew Cuomo. I mean, the junior senator who I work for, Kirsten Gillibrand, has been to many of the counties.
She has.
But at the same time, we all know Chuck Schumer is a very responsive senator. We knew he was on the phone. He has been very, very involved in this from a long far away. I don't think he's sitting back with a tea and letting this all happen.
I just wonder if he's avoiding the race in New York 9, his former congressional district, because that's a fight and he doesn't want to jump in.
And he has been responsive. You've been getting comments and quotes
Yeah,
from
we've
him
been
along
getting.
the
I
line.
had press releases from him.
And if
That
anybody
is
knows
a
Chuck
good
Schumer,
question.
he is very hands-on with his staff, and I think he's very hands-on in this situation.
Yeah, it's true. But wait a minute. You just on the vacation thing, do you believe that it's okay for him not to be here?
Well, last time I was here, we were talking about Andrew Cuomo not being visible and putting out a press release when the earthquake happened.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, he was in
And
Long Island. That's right, he was in the
If
Hamptons.
you're going to be a leader, you should show up.
But let's be honest here. Does Chuck Schumer take a vacation very often?
No,
I mean,
not frequently.
and on a response level, and you've been in the media for a long time, I would say that he has the record to show that he is very responsible and very involved in this state. So
He loves the press. He's always out
certainly does.
there, but he doesn't check with me on his vacation schedule.
Okay. So look, on the New York 9 question, though, unfortunately we're out of time. I do want to have you guys back because I think it is an interesting race, and we'd like to talk to this particular race. It's September 13th, actually, is the special election. So we will discuss that at a later date. Brendan Quinn, thank you very much. Rachel McEnany making your Capital Tonight debut. Thank you.